suspended and now restricted from campus. Now that comes after pro-Palestinian demonstrators took over the Milstein Center at Barnard College for several hours Wednesday. They demanded that the school reinstate students who were recently disciplined. And they claimed administrators, quote, sabotaged negotiations and locked down campus last week. Columbia says it will swiftly work through the discipline process. And amid the ongoing unrest and concerns about anti-Semitism on the Columbia campus, the Trump administration is slashing the university's federal funding by $400 million. And as News 4's Chris Glorioso reports, the government is already warning that more cuts could be coming.
We shouldn't be paying for hate on a college campus. And if Columbia is not getting the message, then action like this, action like cutting the funding, may get through.
Gerard Felitti of the Lawfare Project applauding the Trump administration for its decision to revoke hundreds of millions of dollars in Columbia University grants and contracts. He represents several Jewish students who say their rights have been violated by pro-Palestinian protests, some of which featured imagery celebrating Hamas, a U.S.-designated terrorist organization.
Then you're getting to the anti-Semitism that causes harm.
Friday, newly confirmed Education Secretary Linda McMahon issued a statement saying since October 7th, Jewish students have faced relentless violence, intimidation, and anti-Semitic harassment on their campuses. Today, we demonstrate to Columbia and other universities that we will not tolerate their appalling inaction any longer.
The Trump administration doesn't have the right.
Free speech advocates swiftly denounced the yanking of federal funds, saying financial penalties amount to an unconstitutional violation of the First Amendment.
The administration cannot condition funding for a variety of things on suppressing speech that they disapprove of.
Leonard Leon is an older student who audits classes on campus. He praised Columbia administrators for improving the campus atmosphere from last year when pro-Palestinian encampments and sit-ins disrupted learning for weeks. As a Jewish student who audits classes here, how do you feel about this decision from the Trump administration?
I think it's disgraceful. I feel that Jewish students are being hurt as well as non-Jewish students.
Columbia University administrators reacting today with a written statement that says, in part, we take Columbia's legal obligations seriously and understand how serious this announcement is and are committed to combating anti-Semitism. The NYCLU, meanwhile, says that Columbia should immediately take the Trump administration to court to get these funds back. So far, the university has not said whether it intends to do that.
Party. Why I like the new party? Number one, it's a group of people that's on a panel. We all have differences, but we all basically still come together at the end of the day. The new party for me is about unity. The new party for me is about educating people to the truth, letting people know what's been going on in our country. With that being said, shout out to the new party, man. We're going to keep it going with y'all.
Welcome to the new party. I'm Nora Christine.
I'm Gray Mars. You muted, Slim. Go ahead, Enzo.
I'm Enzo Nuccio.
And I'm 85 Slim.
And tonight we have a special guest. Enzo is back joining us. Enzo, let everyone know where they can find you at.
So everybody, you could follow my main account on TikTok. It is Enzo Debates on TikTok. That's where I do usually daily lives talking about, try to do political debates and a little bit of political content I post on there.
Yeah, so everybody go give him a follow. Go on TikTok at Enzo Debates. And we'll get in more about his show at the end. And he'll, tell us what the topic's going to be after this or when the next time he goes on. But tonight, it's a lot to talk about, y'all. A lot. Okay. So I don't know if you guys been keeping up, but a lot's been happening in New York, the center at Columbia University. As you guys can see in that clip, a former student who recently graduated in December has now been detained by ICE and is going to be deported. And it's kind of unclear the reasons why, and we'll get into it tonight. A lot of it, at the center of it, obviously has to do with the pro-Gaza demonstrations. Enzo, you live up north. What's your thoughts on these protests and the arrests that have been made right now?
So I'm all for completely peaceful protesting. Like I think everybody should have that right. But to the extent that Colombia took last year with the all the anti-Semitic rhetoric and everything that was coming out of there, I thought that was absolutely disgusting. With the person that got arrested, I read into it a little bit myself that they were actually handing out pro-Hamas flyers and paperwork. In
Mm.
my eyes, I'm going to look at that person as if you're a terrorist yourself, regardless of your skin color, whatever it is. They're a known terrorist organization. I think what happened with them in Gaza between Israel is disgusting, and they should be condemned for that. Should not be allowed here. Like there's a difference between free speech and hate speech in my eyes, and that's a clear violation.
I didn't you taught me something new. I did not know that. And so, Gray, as the person representing the Democrats tonight, what is your thoughts on the protests and everything going on with this individual that's been taken into custody?
I heard he was taken into custody. From what I'm aware, you have to go to a federal judge to actually lose your immigration status. I see someone, Kaizen, he's building a show. He put on his Instagram that if you're a green card holder, it doesn't matter if you have tried to overthrow a country or all types of different things that you can lose your citizenship. But what I would want to say is that what Trump is doing with threatening federal funds, I feel like, regardless of the situation, the federal government is not supposed to infringe on the state. The state is supposed to be able to do what they want to do, and they shouldn't be threatened to withhold funds just because they're doing something else. And that's how the Civil War started. The states were mad that the federal government was telling them to do something.
That is a good point, and a lot of this goes back to the Constitution. 85, what's your thoughts on the little that, that you found out tonight and that you know?
Well, I agree with Enzo on those statements. Number one, I was gonna ask, what did this gentleman do to actually get deported? But with that being said, now that I'm more educated on what he was passing out, that put him on the radar.
Right.
So at first I was going to say, well, it's not fair because we're looking for criminals. But again, when you do something like that, you put yourself in that category. Now, as far as the funding, if it's going to protests like that, I think Trump is doing exactly what needs to be done. If the states are going to use those funds in a different way, I would say, yeah, fight for the money back, but they got to prove where those funds are going. We just can't be giving $400 million to universities that's advocating for hate. I don't agree with that.
So I didn't know about him passing out the pro Hamas flyers, but let's take away from that. A lot of what the reasons why they're focusing on is not even the leaflets, from what I'm hearing. They're focusing on his rhetoric and the fact that he was the negotiator. So pretty much, just so everyone is aware, this guy, he is from Syria, but he has a green card. He's not just on a student visa. And he was basically the middleman between the students and between the administration and negotiating for, the protest. Now, two sides to this. And I'm going to play a clip by Speaker Johnson. I can tell you from some of the rhetoric I've seen on the camera, they were very harsh to some of these Jewish students. I'm not going to say that they weren't, because I've seen it get pretty nasty. But on the opposite argument of all of this is, it appears that we're now going after freedom of speech and we're attacking them from having the right to peacefully assemble. Also, the next clip that I'm going to play, guys, just so we're aware, that it's unclear if what they're doing is lawful right now. And I'm going to play the clip because the judge has now blocked what's going on, and I'll play it and we can give a reaction.
Prominent Palestinian activist is arrested by federal immigration agents. A federal judge has now ordered Mahmoud Khalil to not be deported.
But President Trump is warning this is just the first of many more arrests to come. Fox 8's Linda Schmidt joins us live from Morningside Heights with the very latest. Linda.
Yeah, first of all, good evening to both of you. And the lawyer for Mahmoud Khalil is telling us tonight that he is in ICE custody, but he is not in custody here in New York. He is in Louisiana. That is where he has been transferred to. He was picked up on Saturday night. Now, the Trump administration wants him deported, but a judge is saying, hold on just a moment. He is blocking that, at least for now, because Khalil has a court hearing here in New York on Wednesday. We want justice, we want peace. A couple hundred protesters demonstrated outside the ICE field office in Lower Manhattan, demanding the release of Mahmoud Khalil. Some demonstrators clashing with police, leading to their arrest. Khalil, a graduate student at Columbia University until last December, was detained by ICE Saturday after agents showed up at his apartment, which is owned by the university.
The attack on Mahmoud Khalil is intended to make them quake in their boots and to make all of us quake in our boots.
About 70 faculty members with Columbia and Barnard College, along with immigration and civil rights activists, speaking out in support of Khalil. He is a Palestinian activist who has played a role in the anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian protests on campus. His lawyer releasing a statement saying that he is, quote, someone who has never committed a crime and who has simply expressed his political opinions. But the Trump administration sees it differently. The administration has designated Hamas a terrorist organization. Many of the protests, some of them violent, have included language and written material used by Hamas. Jewish students have also been harassed for being Jewish. Khalil is not in the U.S. on a student visa. He is a legal permanent resident with a green card. His wife is a U.S. citizen.
He is in real danger, and each of you bear substantial moral responsibility for that fact.
President Trump posting on social media, we know there are more students at Columbia and other universities across the country who have engaged in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, and the Trump administration will not tolerate it. We will find, apprehend, and deport these terrorist sympathizers. But once again, as we said at the very top there of my report, a judge is so far barring Khalil's deportation.
So we had a lot of education this week for a lot of Americans. People said, oh, he's a green card holder. He doesn't have any rights. I mean, there were some pretty ignorant comments that I read. But just so everyone's clear, green card holders have the same fundamental rights when it comes to peaceful assembly, freedom of speech. But Enzo brought up a good point. If he's giving out those leaflets, that kind of changes the discussion. Enzo, do you think this is going to hold up in court? What's your thoughts?
So that's a hard question to answer. I don't know if it's gonna hold up in court, but like I said in the beginning, yeah, that would be a good reason to get somebody out like that. I don't agree with it. I don't think everybody in those protests are terrorist sympathizers. They could be just
Right.
protesting the Palestinian, the Israeli occupation in Palestine and the war. So I'm not going to say they're all Hamas sympathizers, but I'm kind of leaning towards that it shouldn't be upheld in court. Honestly, for him, for at least.
So, Enzo, do you think that this is going to be the start? Because a lot of people were saying online, green card holders today, Americans tomorrow, American citizens. Do you think this is the beginning of, I hate to say it, but it's kind of like a witch hunt. Like, you got to watch what you say, you got to watch what you do. Or do you think that this is just because they took things too far on these college campuses?
I really think it's because they took it way too far on college campuses. I don't think it's going to be a witch hunt like that, where you need to watch what you say in case you need to be deported for whatever you say. Because, I mean, that's anti-American. That's against the Constitution. We have a First Amendment right for a reason. But if it comes down to hate speech, then that's where I would draw the line on that.
Mm-hmm. 85, what's your thoughts?
I feel the same way. When the administration labeled that group a terrorist group, that was probably the indication to leave it alone. Like, whatever you're doing, just leave it alone.
Why you living in college housing?
Yeah, like, I mean, if you guys remember when all this terrorist stuff was going on back in the days, you couldn't say the word BOMB. You know what I mean?
True.
Like now we're living in the days of almost the same thing. We got to watch what we say on social media. Everything you could be held accountable for, and you might not even mean harm, but it sucks. But to be honest with you, the only way to fix this country, it's got to get ugly first. It's got to be statements. People are going to be used of as examples. A lot of people won't like it. A lot of people won't accept it. But the reality is what it is, and this is what the people voted for. So we can't be surprised.
Right. Gray, before I get to you and go to you, I want to tell you guys about this letter that was signed by all Democrat, well, not all, but all those that signed were Democratic members of Congress. They signed a letter begging Kristi Noem to release him, Rashida Tlaib, Mark Pocan, Nita Velasquez. I'm just going to say names you guys might know: Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Jasmine Crockett, the superstar herself, Al Green. So, Gray, what's your thoughts as the Democrat on the line? Do you think that the Democrats should go harder on defending him, or do you think do you think this is par for the course that they did this letter? Like, do you think that this is the future of the Democratic Party? Are they finally going to, have a backbone on something, or are they just supporting him because it's the cool thing to do?
No. Napoleon said, when the enemy is destroying himself, do nothing. And right now, Trump is always going to do whatever he wants to do. I know you guys are MAGA, but you guys should know Trump is going to do whatever he wants to do. He doesn't care if it's legal, moral. He doesn't care. Trump rules like he's in a monarchy. So I'm not surprised Trump did this, but this is why people like Trump, because Trump isn't afraid to do whatever he wants. So should the Democratic Party put their hands in this? No, because all they're gonna do is make some type of misinformation. Then they gonna call them Hamas sympathizers. They just gonna turn it on them. They didn't stand up for the kid with cancer. We all watched it together. Well, me, you, and Enzo, and then freaking Slim, you was there too. I think you was still there.
Slim was there.
So
Yeah.
So then they said, "Oh, they didn't stand up. They didn't stand up." So I feel like no, stay out of it. Like, because if they get in it, they go find a way to like turn it against them.
Oh gosh. Wow. Well, we'll see what happens next.